Hello, Derbyites. Welcome to our East Coast slugfest for the Oscars. I'm Joyce Eng, senior editor. I'm here with Paul Sheehan, our executive editor, and Daniel Montgomery, our senior editor. So, guys, we need to respond to Tom and Marcus and Chris on the West Coast. They did their slugfest last week. Who do you have for Best Picture right now? Are you still between Shape of Water, Three Billboards? Some people are moving Get Out up to the top of the list after their Writers Guild win. Paul, where are you at?
Well, right now with Three Billboards. I'm sort of waiting this weekend for BAFTA. I mean, Oscar voting doesn't start until next week. But, I've been tempted all season long to put Get Out. I think I might have even, I jump around so much. But I think I might have even had it at one point. It's that darn preferential ballot. And I sort of, Daniel, did you think it was a surprise that it won at WGA over Lady Bird?
I thought that was a really strong two-way race. It's been kind of neck and neck between those two. After Critics' Choice, Jordan Peele won that. It wasn't a total surprise that Get Out won at the Writers Guild, but I really thought it would be Lady Bird. So it was a bit of a shocker. It does indicate if a strength in Get Out that I wasn't necessarily sure it had before.
But what are you predicting for Best Picture?
I've still got Shape of Water. I did move up Get Out into my number 3 spot. I do think Three Billboards is still a little bit closer to the Shape of Water in terms of what could overtake that film. But yeah, I do still think this is probably a 3 or 4-way race still.
I think Lady Bird, its chances has deflated a lot since the WGA loss. Like, it's the only one without a big guild win. Like, it has the Comedy Globe, but that's it.
Yeah, and why do you think that is, Joyce? I mean, you came to us from TV Guide, where you're on our expert panel and would constantly be at the top of the rankings. So really, everyone needs to listen to you and on this, including me. I'll certainly be looking over at your predictions before Oscar night. Why do you think Lady Bird just hasn't resonated? We all, I think, uniformly say it's one of our favorite films. And I thought it would do well with the preferential ballot being maybe not a first choice, but everyone's second or third. Is that why? Is it everyone's second or third when it comes to these races?
I think, like, in that case, it's still viable because of the preferential ballot. Like, if this was just a field of 5 straight vote, I think Three Billboards is winning, like, no question, because it just has that actor support. We know actors love it and writers love it too. Like, it's won a couple screenplay awards, and it probably could have also won WGA had it been eligible. But I think Lady Bird still has a chance with the preferential ballot. But I don't know, like, especially now with, like, the Me Too movement, the climate, like, it feels like it could have helped it a little bit more. But it just, I think WGA, that one, like, that the Get Out one makes sense when you think about it. Like, it's a more conceptual film, whereas compared to Lady Bird, it's a very well written, well made film, but it's still simpler in concept. Like, it's more, the nuances are just more subtle as opposed to the high concept of Get Out. It reminds me of Eternal Sunshine or like Her. Those scripts won. So I feel like they latched onto that and rewarded that. But I'm kind of sad that Lady Bird might go home empty-handed. Like,
So
0 for 5.
now, I mean, I'm pretty sure that this time last year, Joyce, you were predicting La La Land to win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Everyone, I think, except maybe Sasha Stone from Awards Daily, and there was, I think, one of the pundit who had Moonlight. Are we missing something? In other words, like, we all missed Moonlight winning last year, and I would write about the guilds and the support La La Land had across the guilds, not just with nominations but with wins, and just thought, well, it must reflect how highly ranked it's going to be. I mean, do you think the influx of new voters, and there was another big wave in the last year, I mean, are we making a mistake thinking that Shape of Water is their kind of film?
I think, like, because of the new wave of voters, like, it's even more unpredictable. It's because last year it was La La Land, and it was very clear that Moonlight was the alternative. Whereas we have basically, 4 films maybe like 3 strong frontrunners and like definitely a top 2. Like any of those I can see winning. I think maybe the only one everyone is completely underestimating is Dunkirk, which I think everyone agrees is the 5th film in a top 5, if there were one. But that one is, you know, it's a more of a technical achievement. It doesn't have writing or acting nominations. So I think that one would be like the biggest shocker if it somehow won Best Picture. But the other 4, I can see any of them winning and I would not be surprised. And they all have something working against them. Like they're all missing a nomination somewhere at some point this season.
Well,
what's interesting is that
Daniel, you talked about Dunkirk before, right?
Yeah.
So
one thing that if we're missing anything, we could look back at Dunkirk at like this year's Spotlight, in the sense that when the season started, our Oscar predictions opened, Dunkirk was kind of the, you know, prohibitive favorite, like for Best Picture, Best Director, and then other contenders started coming in and then moving up and then winning other awards, and then you know, Dunkirk got moved down in our predictions, and the similar thing happened to Spotlight. It was a front runner early on, and then Big Short started rising, Revenant started rising, Spotlight wasn't winning everything across the board, and then Spotlight ended up winning Best Picture.
So do you think it'll win the first award of the night and then the last award of the night, like Spotlight?
Well, if the first award is Best Editing, then yes. I think so. I think
it'll win more than 2.
And the good thing about Dunkirk is that it does feel important, which I think is probably the thing that's been hurting Lady Bird, which, you know, you had Spotlight, it had the issue of child sexual abuse, and Moonlight was a very dramatic, serious topic about poverty and gender and sexual identity, and Lady Bird might be suffering because it feels like a lighter film. It doesn't feel as like urgently important in that same kind of way. And Dunkirk does, Get Out does. So those, that might give them a push. Like even if it's not your number 1 film on your ballot, being that kind of important topical or artistic achievement might put you in a number 2 or 3 or 4 spot even on a ballot that could help.
And so in a way, Lady Bird is Boyhood.
In a way, yeah. Possibly.
Without the wins.
Although we could still see, I still think there's a shot for Janney. Like there's enough time between...
Or Metcalf.
Yeah,
or for Metcalf. I think there's enough time between that last sweep of awards for Allison Janney and Oscar voting. And we know just from the fact that Lady Bird got into Best Picture that they like that film a little bit more than I, Tonya. So I think that's still probably the only race where the acting race where I can see still there being a bit of wiggle room.
So Joyce, do you think that, I mean, we write about the director picture split over the years. You know, I'm saying 3 Billboards at this very minute. That could change in the next minute, depending on what you say. But do you think that the lack of a nomination for McDonough in directing, did it take 3 Billboards out of the running for you for picture?
No, I think it's like new rules now. I mean, it's not the same as the Ben Affleck situation where he, steamrolled everyone everywhere, so it didn't matter that he didn't get nominated for director. I think we know people love 3 Billboards, so I think like his snub is irrelevant, and no one was really praising him for the direction of the film. It's always the acting and the writing. So if they really wanted to give him an Oscar for creating the film, it would be an original screenplay. So he's known as a playwright. The directing, I don't think it was that great. I think if it had gotten it would just be on the strength of the love of the movie overall.
So what do you think? Who do you think is going to win Best Original Screenplay? That's kind of the hardest race.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I currently have Get Out after its WGA win. I have 3 Billboards in second, but I can totally see that just winning straight out. I had Lady Bird at number 1 for a really long time, and then I moved that down to 3. But I could still see that winning too. It's like we talk in like such generalizations that people want to like spread the wealth, but I don't think most voters like have that in mind when they're checking off their ballots and stuff. But, you know, maybe if like someone voted for like, you know, Jordan Peele and like director, they see like they also like Lady Bird and like this like original screenplay is the only other chance they can award Greta. And you know that like she is the film, like it's her movie. So I think there's still a chance for her.
Yeah. One of the reasons we're so happy to have you on board is because I know you've got your spreadsheets and things. So how, I mean, this notion of spreading the wealth, I mean, does it really happen, or is it just something we like to say to give us something to write about? Like,
I mean, like last year we saw it happen because Kenneth Lonergan, Barry Jenkins, and Damien Chazelle, like the top 3 films of the year, they like each of them walked away with an Oscar because Moonlight was declared adapted. But then, you know, in the Boyhood Birdman year, Richard Linklater and Wes Anderson walked home empty-handed, and Alejandro Iñárritu took home a bunch of Oscars. So
that was Grand Budapest was kind of like almost.
Yeah, Grand Budapest was like sweeping all the screenplay awards, and
Birdman won screenplay. I wonder, was it? It strikes me that's this Shape of Water this year, right? Lots of nominations, but I mean, Daniel, you're predicting Shape of Water. What else do you think it'll win besides Best Picture?
Well, I think it's one of those strange movies that's much stronger for Best Director than it is for Best Picture in terms of its likelihood of winning. I think Guillermo del Toro is, if not a lock, then very safely out front, and I couldn't say Shape of Water is safe for Best Picture, so it would win Best Director. And I think I don't think it would win Screenplay because I think we haven't seen it.
It hasn't won a Screenplay award anyware.
Yeah, it won. I think the St. Louis Film Critics gave it Best Screenplay, but that's about it.
The most important precursor.
But yeah, so we haven't seen, unlike Birdman, which did win a few precursor writing awards leading up to the Oscars, Shape of Water really hasn't. So I don't think it'll win Screenplay. But it'll probably win a few below the line, like score, production design. It could even pour Roger Deakins for Blade Runner. Shape of Water could surprise for cinematography. It could even surprise for editing if it's on that trajectory. But yeah, I think at most Shape of Water could win like a handful, which is actually pretty good for recent years. I mean, last year Moonlight just won 3, Spotlight won 2, Birdman won 4, 12 Years a Slave won 3. So we haven't been seeing a lot of big sweeps in terms of the films that actually end up winning Best Picture. So I could see it winning about between 3 and 5.
Isn't that interesting, Joyce? What did Daniel just recounting those stats that you're a student of the Academy Awards? I mean, it used to be the sweep. I mean, the sweeps, right? That you just win.
Yeah, like Slumdog won 8, and yeah, now it's just a handful, like barely a full hand of Oscars.
Wow! And was Slumdog the last?
Slumdog was the last year of 5 of Best Pictures, and then they did expanded Best Picture. But yeah, now it's just, like Gravity, it won 7 without Best Picture, including director. So like, I don't think Shape of Water will win 7, but I can totally see it going, in that like 4 to 5 range if it takes Best Picture too.
And then would Dunkirk win? How many will it win, Daniel? I mean,
I currently have Dunkirk winning 3. I have it winning editing and both sound categories. And it's interesting. It's got a big fight against potentially Baby Driver in all 3 of those races. But I do think the more Best Picture-y kind of movie tends to win if when it's an option. So I've got it winning 3 of those.
And it's a war film.
Yeah, and it's a war film, and they've liked Christopher Nolan in the below the line races before. Inception, I think, won 4 Oscars, and The Dark Knight won sound editing. So so I've got that winning 3.
Yeah, I have those same 3, and I don't think I have it anywhere else winning.
So Joyce, Daniel was saying sort of Del Toro feels like a lock for director. And so is it the same thing in the acting? I mean, how many of those 4 races do you think are locks? Like who should be memorizing their acceptance speech and who should maybe, you know, have one in their back pocket because they might get called up on stage?
I think all of them are locked at this point, even if there was like some, like I think BAFTA, I think 4 of them are locked. Like I can totally see Allison Janney losing to Leslie Manville at BAFTA,
Right.
but I don't think that would hurt her as much for the Oscar, even though Leslie Manville is up there. But I think, you know, for so long we've seen it as a 2-person race between her and Laurie Metcalf that Leslie would just be another factor in there and could split the alternative vote with Metcalf. So I think like Allison Janney would still be fine. I think like they're all pretty much locked, unfortunately, which is kind of boring in some ways. But you know, I mean, if you're a fan of all of them, like it's, you know, nice to see them win. And it will be interesting because if they all win the BAFTA and the Oscars, it will be the first time all 4 acting winners won the Globe, Critics' Choice, SAG, BAFTA, and Oscars in a single year.
Well, Daniel, you mentioned Dunkirk at the beginning of the award season when we, you know, opened up our prediction center, being far out in front to win Best Picture. And I think from the moment people saw Gary Oldman as Churchill, I mean, that was a done deal. But what about those other 3 races, the people that may end up winning Oscars? I mean, wasn't it going to be Sally Hawkins was going to win and Laurie Metcalf and Willem Dafoe? I mean, what did they do something wrong, or did the people that are going to win do something right?
I honestly think this was a weird kind of case of scheduling in terms of the precursor awards. You know, although we have seen Allison Janney has been campaigning very aggressively, you know, so that sort of thing helped her a lot. But I feel like we're going to look back on this season potentially like basically the 90 some odd Golden Globe voters picked the Oscar winners because they voted for, or they were the first big televised award. They went with these 4. Then the Critics' Choice Awards voted right after them, and then they picked the same 4. And then the SAG Awards finished voting after them, and they picked the same 4. So I feel like the momentum just carried over. Like I've said a few times that I think if the Golden Globes had picked Laurie Metcalf, we would have seen Laurie Metcalf sweep the other 2, and we'd be talking about how she was a lock. So, you know, it just
if Critics' Choice didn't open their voting literally the day after the Golden Globe Awards.
Yeah. It feels like we're looking at, we've been seeing a lot of groupthink that maybe because there's such a gap between the Oscars, that could lead to a surprise, since Oscar voters don't even start voting until the 22nd. So we've got some, you know, or the 20th, and you know, they've got some time to look at these other awards and say like, well, we're not going to just do what they do. But
yeah,
the momentum might be too much.
No, it's interesting you say that because as you observed about Shape of Water winning with the St. Louis Film Critics, and one of the things I do besides keeping track of all the guilds is keeping track of the critics that starts with New York and Los Angeles, but then goes to the regional and cities. And what was so interesting was, I mean, for picture, they were all over the place. And still, you know, from the get-go, they couldn't, you know, it wasn't like like last year it was split absolutely down the middle between La La Land and Moonlight. That was kind of it. I think 1 or 2 other pictures got maybe 1 or 2 wins. But this year, Gary Oldman isn't, I mean, it was Timothée Chalamet just as often as Gary Oldman. But in terms of Best Actress, Sally Hawkins by far over Frances McDormand and Margot Robbie. And then in supporting, same thing, Willem Dafoe and Laurie Metcalf, far more wins. But what was interesting is, as these awards happen, like the Globes, the critics that came out later tended to go with who had won, like Janney and Rockwell won far more after they'd been seen to win somewhere. And the same thing with Frances McDormand.
And like Laurie Metcalf and Willem Dafoe, like those, like the critical favorites as they were, like they won like the major critics awards, like, you know, like New York. I think Willem swept all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Allison, Sam, and even Gary, like they just won the second tier regional critics. Like they didn't win any of the top critics prizes that, you know, we hold to high regard.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. So it's I know we're always talk about sort of getting caught up in an echo chamber, and kind of did that last year with La La Land. But now, but it feels like that echo chamber is happening within like the groups that are voting, as you said, that they kind of endorsing.
So
That
who do you
the
think is the most vulnerable of the four of them?
uh, I I mean, I guess because I just like her performance so much, I would like it to be that Allison Janney is the most vulnerable. But I think, but and our West Coast brethren, I mean, they're there on the ground. I mean, there's events in New York and London, but boy, in Los Angeles, where the bulk of Oscar voters are, the retail politicking aspect matters, and I guess Allison Janney has been doing a masterful job of that. I mean, presenting at the Directors Guild, going to those guild awards, putting yourself in front of people that are going to actually be voting on the Oscars. I mean, it makes a big difference. So it's too bad that, because I kind of feel I guess it's good. They're both character actresses. I mean, Allison Janney and Laurie Metcalf are within a few years of each other. They're both veterans of theater and TV. It's nice that they're getting that even their first Oscar nominations. It's just a shame that they had to happen in the same year.
Maybe well, Laurie won the Tony last year and Allison wasn't nominated. So this is like Allison's revenge.
That's right. And in fact, Allison Janney did the first Broadway revival of 6 Degrees, the play that Stockard Channing had been in, and
yeah,
we'd been on the West Wing with her. It was surprising she wasn't nominated. I mean, because you kind of think, she's pretty savvy about awards. She probably thought that'll get her T for her ego.
And then she got her O coming up in the fall.
Yeah. Which I think the O is unexpected for her, because that's a small little movie that didn't have distribution until Toronto, until the film festival in Toronto. So it was a real surprise. It almost felt like that. Almost, if there'd been another week of Oscar voting, it might have even gotten into Best Picture.
I think we were all expecting it to make Best Picture after the PJ nomination, and it got a lot of Guild nominations elsewhere. It won the Ace Eddie too, so
right.
But it only got 3.
And did it win? Because Joyce, all things about all things. Did it win the Ace Eddie over Lady Bird?
Yeah, over Lady Bird and Baby Driver.
So that's how much the industry likes it. Well, I guess maybe we should wrap up. We'll now mix and match and do some of these with some of us and some of the West Coasters. We'll go at it, but and we're going to lose Joyce eventually to the West Coast Annual. So, but maybe you can make guest appearances if we do these regional based ones. You're an honorary New Yorker.
I'll be like the Midwest correspondent.
St. Louis. You'll be our St. Louis.
We'll do these slugfests sort of like the Writers Guild Awards. Like there'll be an East Coast one and the West Coast ones, and they'll never sync up right.
And then no one knows who won, and then you can't give a speech for 20 minutes. So,
but what we need is people out there to make their predictions, to change the odds, and also to vote for the Dream Ballot, because that is the one place that Laurie Metcalf is winning. People want her to win over Allison Janney. So, I mean, maybe it'll just get her a certificate from Gold Derby, and also the Gold Derby Film Awards, right? Which are slightly different. Daniel, talk about that just for a minute.
Oh yeah, the Gold Derby Film Awards are, we've been doing them for I think 14 years now. You can vote for those in our prediction center. Just pick one winner in all of 20 some odd categories that we have there, including some that the Oscars don't, like Ensemble Cast. And Breakthrough Performer. And I've been watching the results come in. I'm not going to reveal any vote totals, of course, but they're very interesting, and I look forward to revealing those winners when our voting closes. I think towards the end of the month, and we'll announce a few days before the Oscars. So,
okay. Well, thanks, guys. That was fun. And we'll see it can all change after BAFTA. We'll have to meet again.
Or it'll be all the same.
The shortest slugfest ever.
Yeah.
Thanks.